back with it again. Gustave Flaubert's Madame Bovary. And how lucky am I to have access through my library to this Lydia Davis translation with this gorgeous cover. Soak it in. It's a work of art all by itself. I cannot wait to post it on the Instagram at BooksPlusBooze. Truly amazing. And I'm recording this in the library parking lot of my car with the windows rolled down. So if you hear cars rolling by and you hear their tires rolling along the concrete, you're just gonna have to try your best to get over it. It shouldn't be that loud, but if you hear that, that's what it is. Literary realism. This is the tome, the quintessential novel of literary realism, which, as I've mentioned on this channel before, I hate doing these hot takes, but I am not the biggest fan of literary realism. You're allowed to disagree, hate me, sound off in the comments. And I try not to do too many hot takes on this channel because I made this in order to find common ground with fellow readers and find books that we like, and we could talk about things that we have in common, and you know, how our tastes are the same rather than different. And I know I'm going to have tons of literary realism fans watching this video simply because this is the literary realism book, and they're going to hate me for starting off the video like this. But for the sake of transparency, I'm not the biggest fan of literary realism, and that's all right. But that being said, this is the best piece of literary realism that I've ever read. And by literary realism, mostly what I mean is, if I can sum it up in 2 sentences, an author basically shunning any type of metaphorical device or symbolism or lofty metaphors and similes, and instead embracing vivid detail, description, and imagery. And why I'm assuming this is a hot take is that if you ask any reader, be it a casual reader or your everyday reader or lifelong reader, what they like best about their prose and their favorite book, they almost always will say the imagery or the descriptive prose. And those are, you know, telltale signs of literary realism most of the time. So you're allowed to hate me. I just wanted to preface this video by saying that. And the plot of this book is fairly straightforward. It's a linear plot, and it's about Charles Bovary and his wife, Emma Bovary, also known as Madame Bovary. And Charles is, it's a dichotomy of the human psyche. You have on one hand Charles, who is a industrious, nose to the grindstone doctor in the countryside of France. And he by no means excels at his job. He's not a famous doctor. He's not going to die famous, but he gets by, he gets enough money to live and enough to fund his wife and her lifestyle. But he by no means excels at his job. And one day he has a client who is a farmer in the French countryside, and he meets the client's daughter, who is, you probably guessed it, Emma Bovary. And he falls in love, and she kind of convinces herself that she's in love with him. And they get married. And the marriage passage is, by the way, one of my favorite passages in the book. And if you don't read the whole book, it's worth reading. It's in the first, 4 or 5 chapters of part 1. And it is Flaubert doing what he does, vivid description. And he writes about the wedding, and you can just, reading it, you feel like you're there. You feel the ebbs and the flows of what it's like to be at a wedding, or any party for that matter, and the scents and the sights and the sounds. And he describes the music and the dancing, and you can almost just feel yourself being a part of the dances and the fast and the slow. And that's why it appeals to me. And that's why in 1856, I think, don't fact check me, when this book was published, why there was such a big place in the literary marketplace for literary realism is that there was no photographs and there was no cinematography. You had your probably boring life, and you got to read about this fancy wedding in this farmhouse in countryside France, and that's the way that people lived vicariously. But I just think with the advent of HD technology and cinematography, there's less place there's less of a place in the literary marketplace for literary realism. I don't want you to describe to me in vivid detail a pumpkin when I can go online and see an HD photograph of a pumpkin. Give me a story, give me some symbolism, give me a metaphor. Anyways, I won't go down that road, but the wedding scene is awesome. I should have bookmarked that and read a passage out loud to you guys. I know you love when I read out loud to you, but if you don't end up reading the whole book, read that passage. It is basically Flaubert in a nutshell. But they get married, and that's when, as often is the case, the troubles begin.
Let a friend borrow some money several times. He never pay me back. Asked me again, I told him no. Said it shouldn't be like that. What about that $100 I gave you? Put food on the table. What about that 50 bucks you asked me for gas when your neighbor said you had some money coming? I'll be the first person you come see. Your money came, you went a lot of places, but you didn't come see me. I'm through with you. Wash my hands.